What's up, everybody? Unrested back with J News with Gaijin Views, and today I'm going to do something a little bit different because I've been so lackluster on covering J News, and I apologize to all you fans of J News. I'm going to sit here and just read J News. I'm just going to look at the articles, just give you a brief summary, and give you kind of like my opinion on it because that's what it is. J News with Gaijin Views. It's me giving my Gaijin views on these different news stories. I want to do this because since I've missed so many, I'm not just going to try and memorize everything and rush it back out to you. I'm going to try and actually make sure I get all the facts right as I'm reading it because, trust me, you make these videos on YouTube, people will call you out on facts nonstop, I promise you. Alright, we start here first with Okinawa's vote for governor with Futenma Base as focal point. For those of you who don't know, Okinawa, of course, has a military base, America's military base, and they've been petitioning for ages to get it moved out of Okinawa or onto a different island. There are multiple bases. Cat in Okinawa, another YouTuber, has informed me that this is a very, very complicated issue, and I feel you actually have to live in Okinawa and know the battle that's going on between these two sides, the military base and the people who live there. There's been times where U.S. soldiers have raped Okinawan girls, and there's been trouble from that point on, and there's been all extra bunch of stuff too. There's been Okinawan soldiers, I should say American soldiers stationed in Okinawa, who one robbed a taxi, and then the soldiers are saying, well, look, we're not all like this, there's a ton of us here, and that's very true. I actually have a couple friends who are ex-soldiers, ex-marines from the Okinawa base who live here in Osaka. Great guys, very nice. And they say they understand why Okinawa is pissed off at the base, why they want it moved. And it's a battle that's been going back and forth. It creates a ton of jobs for the Okinawa people. There's many, many jobs that they hire the civilians to work on the base. So there's other Okinawans who are not for it to be moved. So it's a huge issue, and honestly, I don't have the depth of research to comment on which side I think is right, because I feel you actually have to live there and know exactly the fight that's going on between them. But if you're super interested, you could always email or watch Cat in Okinawa on YouTube. Alright, we've got ceremony held to mark 37 years since Megumi Yokota's abduction. Megumi Yokota was a 13-year-old girl who was abducted by North Korea. North Korea has since stated that they did not abduct her. She did not die because of being put into a gulag in North Korea, but that she had an overdose on drugs while visiting North Korea. Total BS. I can tell you that right now. Pretty much anything that ever comes out of the news from North Korea is total BS. So there's not much to that story there. She was abducted. Many people from Japan have been abducted by North Korea. At one point, North Korea and Japan talked about settling some of those disputes, saying, can you at least send the ashes of the dead people over? And North Korea's like, yeah, sure, sure, sure. And they sent over, urns full of ashes. Of course, Japan right away DNA tests them because anybody with just looking at ashes can't identify a person. And it came back as just the ashes of North Korean people. And they're just like, these are just your own people's ashes. This isn't Japanese people. And North Korea is so behind the times. They're so technologically non-advanced that they were like, that's not true. There's no such thing. There's no such black magic as checking DNA. There's no such scientific thing as that. You guys are lying. And they just didn't even believe it. And this is the same country that communicates with like beepers and fax machines still. So, they don't have hot running water in North Korea. If you guys didn't know that, hot running water is like maybe only the richest people there have that. Yeah. It's a horrible place. I hope one day they're liberated. But that's for another YouTube video completely. Alright, police report rounding up teen gang members and make them form a sports team. So police in Tokyo are actually trying to do some rehab with gangsters on the street. Sounds pretty good. Instead of just throwing them in jail, they're bringing them together and making them meet every day, every week to form different sports leagues and coach them. And I guess life coach them as well, which I think is pretty darn constructive. Good for them. Alright, let's see what else we got here. Japan's smartphone zombies wreak havoc on the streets. Again, more stories about smartphones, dumb walkers. This is constantly a story about people who are constantly using their cell phones nonstop while walking. I myself never, ever, ever will open or take out a cell phone while I am on a bike, and there's people here who will do that on a bike. Will I look at it while I'm walking? I'll look at it if like I get a beep. I'll be like, oh, okay, and then put it back. But to sit there and like play a game or keep going through your music list, no, I will not do that. I'm always in too much of a rush. Like maybe if I did have more time, I would end up being one of these zombies, but I'm in too much of a rush. Okay. Riot police raid Kyoto University after 3 activists arrested. Let's take a look at that story. I don't know much about that, so I'm just going to click on it and see what it says. Scores of fully clad riot police raided a dormitory at a leading Japanese university, Thursday, report said. An apparently heavy-handed response to left-wing movement that may involve students. Television footage showed ranks of helmeted officers carrying shields and wearing protective clothing converging on the dormitory at prestigious Kyoto University, backed by plainclothes officers. Interesting. I've been stopped by plainclothes officers before. Not because I did anything, just because I was guilty of being white. The 3 were arrested on suspicion of obstructing public officials and accused of using violence against riot police officers on the sidelines of a labor rally in Tokyo held on November 2nd. Here's something you should know about protesting in Japan. You can protest at any time in Japan, but to do it, you actually have to like get in contact with the ward office and the police. And usually, most times, especially if it's going to be an extremely cantankerous riot, you have to have like a police officer with you, or sometimes they hire security officers to be with the protesters to make sure either side doesn't get out of hand. So you can't just suddenly go out there and do it by yourself. You need to approve it first, which that kind of sucks. I'm not so happy about that. But it does keep order. There isn't like super violent protests in Japan, which is nice. Let's see. I think that's going to be about it. Japan's dated smoky cafes unfazed by Starbucks success. So it's saying that mom and pop cafes in Japan are not being crushed by Starbucks. Meanwhile, Starbucks is doing quite well in Japan. That is definitely true. There's a Starbucks on every corner in Japan. Globalization of the Eastern Front, that's a shame. But you know what? The good thing about Japan is that even when big stores open here, like you can have, you have Costco here, giant store. Mom and pop shops don't seem to suffer from that. I guess it's just because there is so much local buys. By that I mean you literally can walk out of your house, walk downstairs, go to your local store, and walk back up. Residential and business areas are not separated. Almost any apartment you live in, you can actually turn your apartment into a store. And that makes the convenience all the difference. For example, there might be a really cheap giant Walmart type store, about 5 miles from you, but if there's a super cheap mom and pop shop, like right down below your apartment, you're probably going to go to the mom and pop shop. Anyway, guys, that was J News for today. I hope you guys are fully satiated and feeling better now that I've gotten back to J News. We will resume next week. Until next time, I am unrested. If you like what you saw here today, please like, comment, and subscribe.